What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Identical Draw podcast. We're doing something different. Obviously, we're filming it all. That's going to be new. You're going to catch the next few episodes of this podcast will also be on YouTube. But I conjured up this idea that I ran by Tom. And it was getting some of the best whitetail hunters we know to look at maps and tell us where they'd hunt.
Yep, on pieces that they've never seen before.
Correct. In different states. I was thinking, man, it's talked about and shown so much in Western hunting. It's talked about in whitetail hunting, what you're looking for, what you're hunting. But I want these guys to give me an Onyx pin of where they would hunt on these parcels.
Yep.
And break down why, when, all the good stuff. So that's basically it. Our first podcast guest is Clay Newcomb. A lot of you guys will know him. He's from Meat Eater. Did Bear Hunting Magazine before that. He lives in Arkansas. Does a ton of whitetail hunting. Does a lot of bear hunting.
He described himself as a raccoon hunter.
Yep.
But he's the host of Bear Grease podcast.
Yep.
On the Meat Eater Network.
Super knowledgeable guy. Just a great human being all around. We've had the pleasure of hanging out with him in person a little bit through First Light and Meat Eater stuff, and he's just a solid human being, and he's an awesome deer hunter. Spends a lot of time chasing the whitetails with the bow, and so he's up to bat first. He goes through Arkansas, a piece in Arkansas,
Missouri.
a piece in Missouri, and then our Kansas 80. All of these guests that we're going to have do this are going to end telling us where they'd hunt on our 80. So it's kind of like everybody's going to dissect it differently, but we just kind of want to have a
control property that people can.
Yep.
That's the same for everybody.
Yep.
So we can see how people hunt differently. So
I hope you enjoy this series. If you do, you need to like this video, comment. We have some other things that could conjure up with this. We're going to have some guests or some podcast listeners, YouTube commenters, send us their property and have some experts break it down as well. So if you want some of these folks saying where they'd hunt on these properties that you might hunt and stuff like that, we're not spot burning.
Yep.
We are
send them to us.
We're not showing any coordinates or anything like that. So anything else?
Let's get into it with Clay.
Yeah. How's the summer been for you, Clay?
It's been good. I was in Alaska in late May, which was a big trip for me, but was a lot of fun if we count that as summer. I've been traveling quite a bit for Bear Grease. Been working on a Mississippi River series, which our series are always there's quite a bit of work that goes into it. I think I just interviewed a lot of guys, made two trips to Mississippi. And I've been great. My son's playing basketball.
Yep.
My wife's garden's going good.
Nice.
Yeah, he's a baller, man. He's a legit baller.
How far is that going to go?
He wants to play college basketball. I mean, that's not like a whim. He has had that in his sights since he was just a little bitty kid, and he works like a pro athlete. I mean, for real. Like he is dedicated. So he's fun to watch play. Good kid, good attitude, and really good work ethic.
I think you mentioned when we were in Idaho that like he's at a pretty competitive, like in the high school league, isn't he?
Yeah, he's playing AAU ball, and there's another acronym for a league that he is in. But yeah, they play kind of. I don't want to say all over the country because it's not quite all over the country, but they play in regionally 6 or 7 hours. They're playing in Nebraska sometime soon.
Nice.
And played in Kansas City last weekend. And at those tournaments, there's teams from all over the country that come. So they're playing. He's playing against some elite players and does good,
I also want to tell you before we jump in on these properties, I love the Asa Carter series. That was like, I would have never guessed any of that like came from him. It was just cool to listen to all of that and see how it all went down.
That was a unique series that we did, and just kind of shocking, but really interesting. Touched on a lot of really interesting stuff from, guys' false identities about being a Native American to really wild racism stuff to a really beautiful, incredible book.
Yeah. I don't know how you find all that information, to be honest. I mean, it just seems like tracking down those people that have all that stuff has got to just be a time suck for sure.
Well, it's my job, you know.
Yeah.
It's not none of it's done on a whim.
Yeah.
You know, our Bear Grease renders are done on a whim, you know, just kind of get the crew together and just have a good time and talk.
Yeah.
But the Bear Grease episodes are, a lot of times I'm working on them for a year before anybody ever hears about them. Just read, like I'll start by reading a book, and then sometimes it takes months to find the right person to do something.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Now, are we recording? Are we recording here?
We're live. We're live. Yep.
What is this? A podcast? Will people be able to watch this on their TV?
People are going to be watching it on YouTube, and to listeners, if you're just listening,
it actually is being filmed on YouTube. Oh man, I would have cleaned up my office, dude, or I would have tilted my camera up so you can see all my bucks.
Oh, there you go.
What I would have done if I
now people get a good glimpse. So, do you want to jump into property number one? Yeah. So, this is going to be, we're going to do the Arkansas property first. If you could pop that one up. What's that? Did you label that waypoint? Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Basically, just want to get your take. Turn on put the hybrid mode there on X so we can see some topo there, Tom. All right. So we're just going to get your hot take on what sticks out to you first about this property. Kind of just talk through like your initial gut, just feelings about the first few things that if you pull up this piece for the first time looking at it, you haven't been there on foot yet. What sticks out to you right out of the gate?
So the first thing that I would be doing on this property would be going back to the west to where this property borders what appears to be row crop ag.
Yep.
That's the furthest point away from a road, which looks like it's probably a little over half a mile from the road.
Yep.
It's and that's not very far, but in the east, in this part of the world, that half mile is going to be thick. It's going to be, it's not everybody's going to go back there, but I would be going back to that back property edge where it borders private with some row crop ag and looking at that.
Real quick, what do you expect that timber to be?
So this is in southwest Arkansas. There, it is going to be ultra thick. I mean, in this part of the world, you're not really going to be able to identify bedding areas real quickly. It wouldn't be like the West where it's like, this is where the deer bed, this is where they feed. I mean, all that is going to be very thick. And it all just depends. You would have to go there to see what the timber's like. It's possible that there's some big stands of mature timber where you can see 30, 40 yards. It's possible that most of this is just like a thicket. Probably in the riparian zones, it looks like there's a creek that flows through there. You might have some bigger timber along those riparian zones because a lot of times they don't cut the timber. This is big timber country, so they've no doubt this timber has been cut over the years and regrown. Probably a lot of pine too. But those riparian zones will often have oaks left because there's some regulations about how close you can cut to a creek, and so that's the way we made a living hunting public land in Southwest Arkansas. Y'all actually, I mean, I've never been to this place, but where they're cutting a lot of timber, you can find oaks along the creeks, and oaks become a limiting factor where there's a lot of pine, what we would call pine plantation.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you're looking for specific white oak trees or spotted oak or whatever that's dropping acorns, and you can target a single tree sometimes. And the oaks drop at different times, specific trees. Like some trees might hold their acorns until the end of October or mid-October. Others are dropping more at the 1st of October. Even same species of tree. It's just they just kind of hold different. And so that's where actually going in there and seeing the place and trying to find some fresh sign would be important. But that's the first thing I do. The other thing I like to do, and on public land, it's probably not as effective, but there's one opening on this little section of this WMA where I doubt it's a food plot, but it is an opening. I like the back corners of these because you're going to find sign around the edge of that. And there's kind of a ridge that falls into that. I'm going to call it a food plot, even though I don't think it is. There's kind of a ridge that falls in from the south to that food plot. And then there's the creek that flows in. I'd be kind of looking on that ridge for deer to be entering into that area down that ridge. So I'd be looking to get a couple 100 yards or even 100 yards up on that little ridge. I mean, it's probably not much elevation change. I mean, maybe just like 50 feet.
Yep.
But those are the two things that stood out to me about that place.
Cool. So if you were going to just rip down there for a hunt and say just magic wand, okay, so when does Arkansas deer season open?
Typically the 4th Saturday in September.
Okay. So from opener until the end of the season, like this property specifically, what like 10 days would you want to hunt? What would you think the best 10 days on that piece would be?
For a classic rut hunt in Arkansas during that time would be to me would be the first week of November. Last week of October can be really good too. So we hold pretty tight in the highland regions of Arkansas to a classic like Midwest rut. Now you get into the Delta, into the flood prone regions that are influenced by the Mississippi River, White River, Big River stuff. It's totally different. It's a month delayed and often kind of stretched out more.
Gotcha.
And this is kind of an in-between zone. This is down in kind of deep southwest Arkansas, so it's not really river country.
Yep.
But I'd be there the first week of November.
Cool. And that first hunt that you'd go in there, would you do that during the daylight so you can actively scout, or would you bomb back there super early in the morning to be back there for sunrise, or would it be like afternoon, slip in and hunt the evening, or what would you be looking to do?
Nate, it would be a secret. I wouldn't tell anybody what I was going to do.
All right.
I'm kidding. Yeah. Oh man, I would really try to scout it first.
Yeah.
I don't like to, I mean, I've done plenty of just like bombing in somewhere and hanging and hunting. That's not my favorite way to hunt, just because and I get why people do that. And I get even the productivity of that. I don't enjoy that. I enjoy being a little more calculated. And so I would probably try to find a way to get in there and scout and know what I was going to do. We hunted last year. I hunted with the guys from the Element for a week. And we did a lot of map scouting and going in and hanging and hunting. And they're really effective at that. And I could see how it could be really effective. I don't enjoy that. It's just because crawl up in a tree and it gets daylight and you've spent an enormous amount of energy getting there, getting in a tree, and you can't see anything. You got no shots. It's like, I just like to be more calculated than that. Again, just personal preference of what I enjoy.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of answers my next question. Like when you pull up to a new piece, say you aren't able to scout, maybe this isn't even a situation that applies to you. Like you always want to scout, but if you aren't able to, are you more inclined to bomb into a place, maybe like just as it gets light, or are you gonna be more calculated and like dip into a certain area with a very careful wind and maybe do that a couple times before you get in deep? Like what's your gut there?
I like to be really conservative in terms of bumping deer. I do think those first sits are very important.
Yep.
But when you're hunting public land, a lot of times it's different. There's different constraints, and you might just not have any idea. So you might just be like, hey, these deer are used to people running in and out of here. I'm just going to go scout this thing with abandoned, I think it all depends how much time you got. If you got a week to spend there and that's your only opportunity, you better be super conservative. If you've got 3 days to hunt there, and if you blow this spot out and there's nothing there, it's no big deal. I might go in and be kind of reckless trying to find some hot sign and kind of getting lucky. So it just, every situation would be so different.
And if you had 5 days, say you took the last few days of October, early November, are you still looking for the fresh sign, looking for some of those oaks that are dropping good, or are you just like, man, I think bucks are just going to be on their feet. I'm just going to find some pinch points and just high traffic areas. What's your mindset there?
That time of year, I would be looking more for pinch point and high traffic areas, because it feels like by late October, early November, a lot of the more of the oak trees are going to be dropping. So acorns are going to be less of a limiting factor. Early in the season, you can find those trees that drop early, and acorns are a limiting factor, and you can find like super hot sign under 1 or 2 trees. That's more of like a early October, definitely September, that early September or that September stuff. Man, you find any trees dropping, it's going to be good. By late October, early November, all the oaks that have acorns are dropping. If it's been a good mast year, acorns aren't really going to be a limiting factor.
Right.
So I'd be looking more for pinch points and just travel areas for sure.
Cool.
But not neglect hot sign, because it's possible you could find a spot that's like, man, the deer are feeding here. But
cool.
Yep.
Sweet. So how many vehicles on this piece until like you're gonna find somewhere else? Like, I mean, if you're seeing like on a few hundred acres, are you seeing 1, 2 vehicles and be like, I'm gonna get out of here? Or are you like, 1 to 2 vehicles in this thick timber area isn't enough to get you out of there?
Down in that part of the world, I wouldn't, if I saw anybody in there, I'd probably get out of there.
Okay. So one truck along that road and you're like, I'm going to find a different spot.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Sweet. Nice.
There's quite a bit of public land down there.
Yep. Yeah.
And none of it's super productive. People should go to other places. Don't come here.
Yeah. Hey, go back to that piece. I was going to just wrap it up. Okay. Yeah. So are the 2 spots you would be interested in would be on the far west side along that crop area, and then possibly in that opening food plot with some of that where the water's through there. Those would be like your 2 spots that you'd want to get to first, A and B.
Yeah.
Let's sum that up. Yeah. Cool. Sweet. All right, let's move to Missouri. So for the listeners, it's about 110 acre piece in Missouri, and it looks like the northern section kind of bumps up to river. Yeah, it's probably big enough.
Pretty big river.
Call it the river. Yeah. Mix. You got still looks like some thicker timber with still some crops in there. One access spot, along the west kind of borders a road. Yep. And looks like there's a single parking lot there. All right, Clay, same kind of setup. What time of the year, like, would you still like, man, if you had an open fall, I think Missouri opens sometime in September. Would you still be looking to go that October, November timeframe, or would you be like, this could be interesting in September, try to get some bucks on a summer pattern? Or like, what would be your, looking at that chunk, what would pique your interest when to hunt that piece?
I would have to say, I'm for any traveling hunting that I'm doing, for the most part, I'm just targeting those peak rut times.
Yep.
So I can't really, if I I had time to go in early October to something like this, I mean,
Yep.
I would probably hunt it a fairly similar way. Man, that's a good looking property. A lot of features on that property. It'd be nice to know what was in that field. Oh, okay. It's probably soybeans, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like
It-
almost
it-
that rotation.
I can't tell if that bottom field is planted. That bottom field might just be grass. Yeah.
Yeah, it could just be grass. Man, there's a lot going on in that property. I mean, I think you just have to get in there and just really scout this one, because there's a couple of things that I would just main features that are worth noting is that these outside river bends like this big river cutting in and making a big meander bend here. You'll find deer trails right along the edge of that river.
Yep.
Where deer are just like swooping around, and it's just the path of least resistance. I don't know that that's necessarily where you're going to hunt. There's a bottom that runs north to south that connects with the river. I think that's where I'd be wanting to go. And there's little ridges that touch down. There's 1, 2, 3, kind of 4 tips of ridges that touch down into that little creek bottom right there. And I think those little fingers deer are gonna be using those fingers. Probably, well, there's fields over there. Probably bedding on some of that.
Yep.
And coming down into that riparian zone to come over to these soybeans. I would just have to get in there and scout that and see. I mean, that looks really good. And then the back edges of these crop fields, they're hard to hunt because you never know where the deer are going to pop out. But you could probably get in there and just sit in some of these back corners, catching bucks even during the day, kind of cruising. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And then there is a timbered funnel that goes from kind of southwest to northeast, like the bottom third of that property that connects. There's like a finger of timber, which obviously is a little funnel, but I would imagine that wouldn't be a lot of daytime activity in there, but could be.
Yeah. Zooming out, I think that little whatever creek system on the east side of that property just like looks like that could be such good travel and connecting to that bigger river. And that I'd like, if there's one waypoint that I'd probably just sit if I hadn't had the opportunity to scout, it'd probably be somewhere along that creek or whatever that is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good looking piece of property right there.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting if, like, my first time there, I'd have to check out the river bend. I'd probably be walking that. Yeah, and I think that'd probably honestly give you a good understanding of how many dudes are hunting it too, because I bet that's what everybody wants to do right out of the gate, is just walk that edge.
Clay, what if you had to hunt this piece? What wind is like? What kind of wind are you looking for to kind of get in and mess around a little bit?
Well, obviously a east wind would be good, which you're probably not going to get very often. You could work it with a north or a south wind. You would just kind of, if you had a south wind, you'd swing to the north and come in from the north. If you had a north wind, you'd hug to the south and come in. Like if you're wanting to hunt that little creek bottom and you had a north wind, you'd bump some deer probably. That's a pretty big field though. I think you could skirt the south edge of that field and then get into that creek bottom and then walk. It's only 160, so it's not like that's that far to walk.
Right.
And then you could walk north in that creek bottom, heading north with a north wind, get in there and hunt. Yeah, you could make it work,
Would you be interested in would you ever hang a stand on one of those fields just for an observation sit before bombing back in there?
I've never done that before, but I've not really hunted a lot of big cropland You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I really haven't hunted other than in Manitoba. I've hunted Manitoba 4 years, and we kind of did some stuff like that, but I would rarely want to waste a hunt, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Usually I'm
So-
just like, dude, I'm just gonna go hunting.
Yeah, that's the observation sit is kind of a time of the year thing for me. If I'm hunting early season where I think they'd actually do the same thing twice, maybe I'd throw one in there. But like if I was hunting the late October, November timeframe, I'd be bombing into the timber for sure.
Yeah.
So Clay, I'll paint the situation again. If you're unable to scout, but you just know like this is kind of your only option for a single day, where's your gut telling you to sit for maybe for, let's just say a full day sit? Like, where are you?
Thomas, could you expound on this analogy to help me a little bit? Like, tell me like why I wasn't able to scout. You know, like
Yeah.
Clay, you were gonna leave to go hunting, and the mules got out, and then your son had a
Yeah.
basketball game, and
Somebody
he had scored 60 points, so you were really pumped. But then, you know, it would help a little bit to expound.
You're a better storyteller than me.
I'm kidding.
No, yeah.
Hey,
Somebody
tell me the question again.
okay. Somebody blindfolded you, carried you up to this piece, and say you have to hunt here for the day. Where are you going?
That creek bottom. I'm going to that creek bottom behind those soybean fields, and I'm going to walk that creek bottom. And I think they're going to travel that creek bottom, but also fall off of those little fingers.
Yep.
And even trail. I hadn't really looked at the bigger picture. Okay, yeah, there's quite a bit of timber to the south.
Yep.
That I think they might be. You know, there could be deer coming from that place on the south, coming up through that creek. I just think those bucks will be running.
Yep.
In that
Yeah.
low
So
creek bottom.
kind of probably depending on the wind, come just on the north end of that or the south end of that, probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think so.
Nate, any other mentions you want to make on that?
Just my final. I mean, is this a one vehicle and you're moving on place again? Probably.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a 160 and there's somebody there, you got to go somewhere else, man.
Yep.
Nice.
Better get there early.
Yep. All right, let's go to the last waypoint, which listeners and viewers understand by this point. It's the Kansas 80. We wanted a property that is kind of a control to see how similar our guests kind of break down a piece.
Okay. So this is your Kansas 80.
Yep.
I don't think you could kill a deer on this place.
Yeah, too hard. We're thinking
There's
about
probably
selling.
no turkeys,
Yep.
turkeys, no deer, no nothing.
It's crazy because from over the top, you can basically only see our big food plot, but we've got 2 or 3 others and a couple bigger paths in there. But I think that kind of leads us back to that first property in Arkansas. Like big timbered stuff, you basically just like, you need to get in there and take a look more so than if it's more cut up piece, more timber draw kind of thing. I think getting in there is vital.
I'll give you some details. So in that, you can see that plot that's kind of on the northwest side. That's going to be split in corn and beans. And so it's only a few acres of corn, a few acres of beans. So that's the biggest food source on the property. And then
Now where is that?
so you can kind of the big green like grass pasture you can see probably along the road.
Okay, on the west side.
Yes, on the west side. Yep. And then like you can see if you
Gotcha.
zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see where it's browned up.
Yeah,
That's where we have our food plots in there.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a split in corn and beans. We have a few different clover, just smaller plots on the ground. Along the creek, it's going to be bigger timber, oaks, walnuts, hackberries, hickories, and then closer, basically, like the further west you go, it becomes more of a Osage orange and locust kind of stuff. The timber changes drastically, but just your first gut, like what features are you liking the most right out of the gate?
Hmm. I would. I like these riparian zones. I think the little creek bottom going through there is probably gonna have some deer traffic. I also like where this South Fork Wolf River touches your property. Does it actually touch the property?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. I'd be checking that corner. It just feels like a lot's going on in the corner. But that is walking all the way across it. There's not a lot of like big dominant topo features that I'm seeing that are standing out to me. But
Yep.
I mean, I think your main play would just be catching deer moving from kind of north to south along that creek, getting back in on that South Fork of the Wolf River, but also your food plot. If you weren't hunting them and they weren't disturbed, I mean, I'm sure you guys are killing deer on that food plot. Is that true?
Yeah, less than you'd think, just because I don't know. So the first ever buck we shot on the place was like our first sit on the food plot, October 3rd, and we were talking about this on our last podcast. Like our beans, for some reason, I think we just planted them late. They were way more green than everybody else. So I think that food source was like really good, still. But I do think it ruined us a little bit after that, because we were like, oh my gosh, we shot a buck on the beans our first sit, and we gave it too much time. And so honestly, we've backed off the food plot sitting pretty heavily. We still hit the beans, some early season stuff, but we stay off that a lot until late season, because we leave those crops standing and things like that. So we definitely spend most of our time in the timber.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just I would be hunting that riparian zone running north to south.
Yep.
What do you guys do? Spill the beans, man.
It's funny, everybody says that northeast corner like looks like big buck zone because of it, like the creek that cuts the corner, and I mean just the flat area of that. We hunt, you can see like that maybe if you have the hybrid on, that the darkest yellow topo line, we stick to that, especially like the north central. We definitely have stands on there, being able to look down into the bottom, more into the creek area. The buck I shot last year, I shot 100 yards from the shed. That you can see it in the far southwest corner. That's our shed.
Really?
Yeah.
What was he doing down there?
That's chasing does. We asked our last guest, and we wanted to ask you, like, I shot him November 11th, 2:30 p.m. We'd been in the stand for like 10 minutes. Kind of, if you take from the shed, if you go straight east to that dark topo where it's kind of got a little finger, looks like a thumb.
Yep.
That's basically where there were deer just running like heck to the north, just within 100 yards of us, just chasing like crazy. So Tom grabbed the grunt tube, and this was like November 11th, 2 p.m. maybe, and he just ripped some grunts, and then that behemoth just came out of the south. So what we asked is,
south.
Came from the south.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the interesting part, because we had a north wind. So technically he was pretty much downwind. We did have water behind us, so he like wasn't walking the water, so he's a little off. But like we always debate, was he bedded there and we just happened to slip by him, because we would have walked within 80 yards probably of him getting into the tree? Or was it just, man, November 11th, he was probably just working, and we just had to be in the stand the right time? Because we were only in the stand we'd only been in the stand for 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's one of those deals where, I mean, I don't know. Would you guys have picked that spot to set a stand just by looking at a topo map on Onyx?
No, it's crazy.
Yeah,
we just
there's nothing there.
I know.
So why were you sitting there?
We were sitting there. So one, we have a little bit of clover there, but mainly is because to the north is like one of our thickest, bedding areas, which the whole 80, one thing we talk about is like our whole 80 is like you could just throw a dart and it's going to be bedding because it's just all thick. It's kind of like what you were talking. It's like we don't have an area where we're like, oh, that's the bedding zone anywhere on the property besides pretty much our food plot, deer bed. And so that's not that, but that is like in particular like one of the thicker spots. And then we also do have that creek that, I mean, we're sitting 15 yards from 20 yards from where that creek kind of comes along and then kind of meanders around. So that was pretty much it. But I mean, also one thing that we have that you don't have was a morning hunt, that there were some bucks in the area, and just knowing that area is just, for whatever reason, we were getting action in there. And we actually did flip a coin about where to hunt during that sit. So it was also a substantial amount of luck for that hunt.
Well, that's good.
Yep.
It's part of being in Kansas and being in good country.
Yep.
It's good.
That was a good answer, Clay. That lines up. I guess we got to ask you. So you said, is there anywhere on that creek that, like, if you had one again, if somebody just blindfolded you and dropped you off, is there anywhere on that creek that you're say it's a full day hunt, November 12th? You're gonna pack your PB and J.
I think it would be wind.
Yeah,
it would be. You just have to, if the
you
wind
probably
was
have
coming from the north, you'd hunt.
Say you have. I mean, during that time, you'll probably have a north wind. Say you've got a north wind. It's chilly. You got your solitudes or sanctuary bibs on, trying to stay warm all day. Probably starting on the south.
You see about 100 yards behind that shed where that little finger is on that dark topo line. That's where I'd be hunting.
Yeah, it's a good spot. Cool.
No, I mean, if I was just bombing in there, I think I'd just be trying to get into the central part of the property along that riparian zone where the wind was most favorable. I mean, I just don't see any, and again, not having hunted that area at all, I don't, it's possible that some of those little things are like really prominent, but I just don't see a whole lot of is the property relatively flat? I mean, I see topo lines, but like, how much relief is there? Is it like 100 foot or 50 foot or 200 foot? It's hard for me to tell.
It's 100. It's more than you think. Like, what I always tell people is I could fit 4 to 5 bow hunters on this property super comfortably.
Really?
Yes. And I'd be like, oh, everybody's got a shot. Nobody's going to be like feeling like they're intruding the other person just because you can't be in one spot and like see a long ways besides our pasture pretty much. In the north, kind of where you're saying in the north where that fork is, you can see that dark topo lines just to the west there. That's where, if you are on that topo, you can kind of see down into there. As far as visibility, that's like probably the best part on the property. But it is, when we had Spencer Newhart hunt the property a few years back, he's like, it hunts as like a bow hunter. It hunts like 200 acres.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
How many mature deer have y'all killed off that place, and how long have you had it?
Had it since 2019 and killed 5 like 4 years and older, and then one 3-year-old.
That's good.
Yep.
Man, that's incredibly productive, man.
It's just when, I mean, not to go on a tangent, but like when you're looking for a property, you're like, we want to be in one of these states that you just don't know what's going to pop up. And the buck that Tom killed over my shoulder, I mean, that was a deer that we had history with, but we hadn't had a single trail camera photo this year. And he just popped up at 11 yards, and you just don't think shoot. And just, we've been blessed with that area. Cause I mean, we've had neighbor shot our first year there, neighbor shot like a 178. The next year that we should have killed. We should have killed that one up. The next year was when Newhart came and shot a buck. Probably he was like mid 150s, I think.
and then our neighbor shot our biggest deer. I think we probably showed you in Idaho. He was like, I think he broke off a ton, but he still scored like 192 or something.
Wow,
and then
you are in some big buck country. How do you?
Yeah,
y'all don't get tags every year though, do you?
We have been extremely lucky. So we get in Kansas, you get one landowner per 80. So we always get one. So we kind of split that up between us two, our dad, whoever kind of wants it. So we just kind of rotate there. But we always all apply because we're like, the guy that doesn't draw can get the landowner. But we both applied this year. And we both pulled non-resident.
Wow, that's great. So you got a tag for me?
Yeah, if you want to come, you can have the landowner tag.
Great. Okay.
Come shoot a big buck.
Do y'all have any other access up there? Do you have other places that you are able to hunt?
Not really.
I guess. Yeah, private land. No, but there's walk-in. We'll if there's a certain wind during the day that we're just like the 80 needs a break, we're just going to get off it. We'll drive 20, 30, 40 minutes and just hit one of the walk-ins in the area. But which people think we're kind of crazy leaving that piece, but we've seen some big deer on the public in the area as well. So, and depending on the time of the year, pressure is, I mean, it's busy in November. It's busy like anywhere else. You can find those sweet spots, especially in the earlier later time frame. Get away from the folks and stuff like that. And it's nice. The neighbor to the north lets us access. So we've actually walked through his crop before in his pasture and then bombed into our property from the north, which is money with a south wind. The other landowners, we have really good neighbors. They're all like, it gets like pressured very heavily, especially during archery season. I'm like always so surprised how many guys are hunting. We have some retired folks in the area, and I mean, these older guys will hunt. I mean, just a ton. Probably more than us.
Yeah, just a ton. So it definitely sees hunting pressure. But the awesome thing is that I love about it is the rifle season in Kansas is late. It's like basically the first 2 weeks of December. And just like Nebraska opener, it's just like, it sounds like the 4th of July. But you can sit on opening day in Kansas and like hear a handful of gunshots maybe.
Yep.
Which is pretty crazy. And that right there is why you have big deer.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah. Well, what's the next 2 months look like for you, Clay? What do you got on the docket?
So I always have bear grease related travel that is often comes up like overnight. Like I'll be working on something and get a lead with a contact, and I might be like, hey, 2 days from now, I'm going to Tennessee. So there's always that on the table. But the biggest thing is I'm going back to Alaska with Steve Ranella for a redemption moose hunt for him. So,
nice.
So we went last year, and I killed a moose. We hunted for 9 days, and I killed it on the last 2 hours of the season. And he was standing right there with me when I killed it. He could have killed it. Tried to get him to kill it.
Yeah. Why is he handing off the rifle again? Because you even mentioned like it was his trip to kill a big moose. Like, why do you think his gut? Did he feel bad?
For real, it was his moose to kill.
Yeah.
I don't know. For real, I've talked to him about it, and he does have I've noticed he has a pretty strong thing that if you spot the animal, that it's yours. And just randomly, I spotted that moose. I mean, of all the moose we spotted, I'm sure. I mean, he spotted more than me, I think. But just that one, I saw the moose. And so I think in his mind, he was just like, this is Clay's moose if it shows up. But he didn't tell me that until the moose was like in sight.
Right.
I'm like, hey, you're going to shoot this moose. This is your moose. And he was like, no, you shoot it. Yeah. So we had a little argument there.
So that's a trip where it's just like it's a patience game. Are you fully like looking forward to that trip, or you're like, this is going to be fun for me to sit in the same place for 10 days and read a book or something?
Man, I love that kind of hunting.
Yeah,
A lot
the slow
like
stuff.
Giannis Patelis doesn't like moose hunting. He'd rather elk hunt where you're moving around and interacting. I'm not saying I don't like to move around and be active, but I love to just hunker down and sit. That's the way I like to whitetail hunt. When I hunted with the Element guys last year on public land, and we never sat in the same tree more than once in a set, I think 6 or 7 days. I mean, they were radical movers. And I'd kind of just decided when I was with them, I was going to do what they were doing. And partly because it made more sense just logistically for me to kind of roll with the flow that they were in.
Yep.
So, we set up our saddle setups like 14 different times, in 6 or 7 days or whatever. That would be extreme. My gut, and just the way I grew up and just the way I like to hunt, I'd rather hunker down in some place and sit there all day and maybe another day and just kind of wait it out, which there's benefits in both. And there's no right answer. It's just what you find success doing. And so I say all that to say I enjoy that moose hunt because that moose hunt's cool because of where you're at. I mean, you're in true wilderness. I mean, no doubt the most remote wilderness on this continent. It's a fly-in hunt. So we were 40 miles from the nearest road. That's just special to be in that place and just sit there. Just sit there. And it can be boring. It can be long, but I enjoy that.
So is Steve the only tag holder, or is he going to try to hand the rifle off to somebody else again?
Yeah, I think he's stacking the deck in his favor, which is a good thing. He'll have the only moose tag. I'm going to have maybe a caribou tag or a bear tag. Because it's possible to see a caribou up there, possible to see a black bear. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Do you have, do you run trail cameras still for whitetails? And if you do you have any of those out yet?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Right now I've only got one cell camera that's working. I keep cell cameras out kind of year round on some places, and they're as much for bear as they are deer, but I get both just kind of in travel areas. And I won't start seriously putting out deer trail cams until probably late August on some of this. My hunting's kind of spread all over the place. Like I do some very local hunting, like close to my house, but I also drive a couple hours and do some hunting.
Yep.
Most of the big deer that I say big deer for me, big deer that I kill have over the years been close to home on private land.
Yep.
It's not doing much good to have camera. My life is pretty busy. So it's like I segment it out, and I'm just not running many cameras right now for whitetail, but I'll start in late August and get an idea for what's around.
Yep. Any big bucks that you have any history with in the area that you're hoping are alive, or just full turkey this year?
Last year was one of the worst years I've seen in 20 years of paying attention to these deer. I didn't have a single deer over about 110 inches last year to hunt.
Wow.
On all my properties. Yeah, it was terrible. I don't understand it. And a lot of guys in this region saw that same thing just locally, like kind of where I'm at. I had several guys that were like, man, I've always got at least a 130 to hunt. And didn't even have a 130. So we occasionally get some good deer. The biggest deer that I've ever killed, or score wise, you can't see it, but it's that one. It's that deer scored 169, and I killed him with a bow, just pretty close to my house. In 2007.
What did Moose score again?
Yeah, that's Moose.
Oh, that is.
No. Moose. Got it. That's Dagger. Moose scored. Yeah, I forgot y'all knew that story. Yeah, that's Dagger. It's been a long time since I've even said his name out loud. That's Dagger. Moose scored grossed 189,
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But it was a freak trashy deer, just stickers all over. I mean, it wasn't like a big typical 180, I mean, it was just,
Yep.
So we get occasionally some good deer, but on any given year, I'm hunting 120-inch deer.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's either feast or famine. There was a big deer over here a couple years ago. I'm 99.99% certain he's dead now, but it was a giant. It was probably 170 plus inch, primarily a typical, but he had quite a few sticker points and stuff.
Yeah.
But the next buck down from him was literally like 115 inches. I don't really understand. It's always like that. It's either feast or famine, and so I don't know.
Will you be going to any other states for whitetails this fall?
This year is the first in a while that because of some other projects I'm working on, I don't really have a big whitetail season laid out. I'm looking forward to just hunting locally though, which I haven't done in a lot of years because I've always got something going on. We filmed 1 week in November the last 2 years, which, I with my work schedule, I don't get to just like dedicate a month to anything. Like I'm always like squeezing in a week of hunting, and then I got to come back and pound out something or travel somewhere. And so, even like 1 week in November really takes up a big part of my fall to be dedicated. So I'm kind of looking forward to sticking around, because if I'm around, I like local hunting a lot of times better than traveling to hunt, because you can pick and choose your days. You can go out for 2 hours one afternoon after you've worked or done what you needed to do. You can go out a morning here or there. If a front comes in, you can be like, oh, hey, I'm moving everything back. I'm not going to go do that. I'm hunting all day. When you travel and hunt and you've got 5 days, it may be the worst 5 days of the year. And then you're locked into it. So I've always enjoyed local hunting. And really, before I was working for Meat Eater or doing anything, I kind of built my life in a way around being able to do that. I mean, that's why I started, when I got out of college, I started a landscape company, and it was to be able to capitalize on local hunting. Really, just I wanted to be able to go when the time was right, and also family reasons, and wanted to be able to do the same thing with my family for different things. But so I've always enjoyed that, man. To me, killing a deer that I can bring home and skin in my front yard is more valuable to me than going somewhere and killing a big deer. I just love it. So
cool. Awesome.
Yep. But I have had some great, I also have learned I don't like just to like go somewhere and hunt. I mean, a lot of people really enjoy that. I like to have some connection to a place. Like for 4 years, I went up and hunted Canada, and in Canada, you got to have an outfitter. So I mean, it's an outfitted hunt, and that people have all kind of connotations about that. Man, the people that we hunted with were kind of like family to us, and he just let me do what I wanted on his property. I mean, it was kind of like going to your grandpa's place and him just being like, "Hey, hunt for a week, do what you want." I mean, he abided by all the regulations of what a guide has to do for you, but that became very enjoyable to me. And I hadn't been up there the last couple of years, primarily because of my Meat Eater schedule just hasn't allotted for it, but killed some good deer up there in Canada, which is a lot of fun. So I did enjoy that, but it was because I had a connection to place because of these people and just a little bit of history there,
Yep,
so
for sure. Cool. Yeah, that's even with our out of state stuff, we tend to go back to the areas that we just like to hunt. Whether the hunting is great or not, we just like the landscape and we like just the area. And I'd say we aim to add one new place a year, so eventually have been to a lot of places, but we always go back to
Some trustees.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool, man.
Well, Clay, we seriously appreciate the time. We know your schedule is hectic as heck. But yeah, I mean, one of these days we'd seriously love to have you to the 80 to hunt a big Kansas buck. So put that on your radar.
Hey, I'd take you up on it, man. That's hard to pass up, and it's not that far from Northwest Arkansas up there.
It's not.
Probably 5 hours or so, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, nice easy drive. But yeah, that love the intel and everything like that. So hope you have a great fall, and we'll stay in touch for sure.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Skype.